So it's going to be sort of playing around that, setting up the damage in a nice way. Maybe if you can do an early settlement disruption, that would be the best way to go. Oh, goodness.
Prizes or not, we are getting things kicked off. And it looks like Jackson will be starting first, and we'll immediately get the bad news that both Charizard EX are unavailable after playing the Nest Ball to search for a basic Pokemon.
I mean, both Charizard would be bad enough, right? But the fact that the Charmeleon's in there as well, so you can't even, like, you know, you get a Charmeleon ready, evolved, and then take a prize with, like you mentioned, a Curse Blast off of a Dusknoir, which it does play, to then do it that way. Oh, that's so rough.
And I wonder how Jackson will maybe pivot the setup this first turn. Do you aggressively go for things like Duskull? Do you just get down both of your Duskull at this point instead of any of these Charmander or only one Charmander? Usually, right, Lost Zone has a lot of super fast aggression in this matchup. You've got the Prime Catcher, the Radiant Greninja. Do you think Jackson has to sort of, you know, abandon the priority to focus on taking prize cards so he can even have a chance in this game?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because your Charizard, it's the namesake of your deck. It's what makes your deck so good. It's your main attacker. If you don't get it out of your prizes, you're stuffed. So yeah, you absolutely just have to go very aggressive with the Curse Blast. Try and take some prizes. I mean, saving grace here, of course. Fabrizio playing this Lost Zone Toolbox deck. His Pokemon do have lower HP, so a Curse Blast would be able to take an easy KO there and start to maybe fish some of those pieces out of the prize cards.
So it looks like Charmander will be the selection off this Nest Ball, and now an Ultra Ball being played. So Jackson will discard 2 cards, find any Pokemon he chooses. Bit of a costly one, though. Does get rid of one of those rare candy. Lots of these gold cards. Blinding me a little bit. It's too early, Freya. It's too early.
I was just thinking the exact same thing. That gold rare candy is off from Plasma Blast. That's an absolute throwback card. That's a gorgeous artwork. But yeah, so much gold. So many illustration rares as well on the field. And that shiny Charmander. Like, yeah, I'm not ready either.
And now we see Duskull come down into play. So Jackson immediately getting these Pokemon set up, threatening something like a Curse Blast on the following turn to, you know, give himself at least a hope, a breath of life in this game, where both of those Charizard currently hiding in their den, not wanting to come out, being in the prizes.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if Fabrizio picks this up. It will be an insane read if he can, but say you can get, you know, that turn 1 Cramorant going with a Spit Innocently. Wait, no, I stand corrected. Fabrizio does not play Cramorant in his deck list.
That is a very interesting inclusion. You know, Cramorant is a card that, with that Lost Provisions ability, allows you to attack for 0 energy as long as you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone. So it's a great, you know, burst attacker here early on before you get those 7 cards in the Lost Zone to use things like Mirage Gate. But instead, Fabrizio is going to play this searching card here, the Nest Ball, searching through the deck. And look at the bottom right corner. That is a card we haven't talked yet about.
Oh, yes.
Iron Valiant EX Tachyon Bits, an ability that we saw have so much success last year at the Latin America International Championships. Maybe making a comeback here in Fabrizio's deck.
Yeah, piloted by Noah Sawyer, right? But with that Entei Iron Valiant deck coming in 2nd place to Yuho. But it's a very interesting little math fixer, right? Because, I mean, these Lost Zone Toolbox decks play so many switching cards anyway. It makes sense, right? Just incorporate that into the mix, just get those extra 2 damage counters on one of your Pokemon. It might be the extra push over the edge to get a KO when you'd otherwise miss it. Really cool tech.
And this Lost Zone deck requires you to know exactly what resources you have available when you're making these tough decisions, with things like flower selecting, of course, the main engine of the deck with Comfey, putting cards in the Lost Zone and powering up those special cards like Mirage Gate, the Sableye. It's the, you know, core of this deck. So we'll see the Nest Ball get played and Greninja gets benched, signaling now that concealed cards could maybe draw Fabrizio some cards and get him set up.
Yeah, important to note as well, we did see it up there, the Future Booster Energy Capsule. Fabrizio is playing that as a one-off tech. That does, of course, give any future Pokemon that's attached to 20 more damage on its attacks, but more importantly, in this instance, a free retreat cost. And actually, thinking about it, I just said, oh, the attack doesn't matter, but in this deck, actually, given that you are playing Psychic Energy, you can actually attack with the Iron Valiant if you want to.
You absolutely can. It's another good way to, you know, put some burst pressure on your opponent, attack, deal some solid pressure. The turn continuing here for Fabrizio, does play Nest Ball, will find yet another Pokemon. It will be that 2nd Comfey onto the board. So flower selecting one after another, the chain of flowers, literally and figuratively.
Whenever I think of Comfey now, I can always think of Fernando Cifuentes, right? Wearing the Comfey plush around the neck, gorgeous plushie that. But I always have that association in my mind when the One World's wearing the Comfey there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a tell, right? If you're a Lost Box player sitting down with a Comfey on your neck, you're like, I'm going to go 2nd against you rather than 1st. Could be definitely a big tell.
And then surprise, Iron Forts.
Yeah, that's how they get you. You can never trust the playmat. No. You can never trust any of the attire. That's lesson number 1 in Pokemon.
Very, very good lesson indeed. So flower selecting number 2, and this is a choice and a half. So I believe that's a Super Rod and a Forest Seal Stone. Now, the Forest Seal Stone going to be a great way to search any one card. If you can get that one of those V Pokemon down. Now, I believe the only V Pokemon that Fabrizio is playing is that Raikou V, which is not a bad attacker to bench in any circumstance, but definitely going to want to be making sure that's enabled at some point. But after that flower selecting, just going to be a pass.
And that was a really tough loss zone there for Fabrizio. He has prized 2 of these Super Rods, so he is left with only 1 Super Rod left. So you see him really valuing the power of that Forest Seal Stone. Back onto Jackson here, though. He will start things off with an Arven, so that can get out a rare candy or another item, plus a tool card. And look, don't have Charizard as of now, but Pidgeotto is another great way to, get your strategy going and apply some, prize card advantage. In this case, it's actually going to be the secret box. A very interesting ace-spec inclusion here for Jackson.
Yeah, I feel like the secret box is sneaking into more and more decks, It is kind of almost like a sleeper hit in a sense. Sure, it's a big discard cost to use. You have to discard 3 cards, but being able to play it and then search for an item, a tool, a supporter, and a stadium, it kind of just gets you everything you need, right? It's a really, really strong ace-spec.
And in this case, the stadium of choice will be the Jamming Tower. So maybe Fabrizio kicking himself a little bit, saying, yeah, the Forest Seal Stone could have had value, but now the Jamming Tower is coming down. Of course, those tool cards in play have no effect. So that Super Rod lost forever for this game. And Jamming Tower, if it does come down, means that even if Fabrizio finds something like a Raikou V, I mean, look, his hand was not even that great last turn.
No,
didn't play down something like the Colress's Experiments. Of course, does have those counter stadium cards. It is sort of always a stadium war between 2 players, especially with a disruptive stadium like Jamming Tower. So we'll see how things play out.
Yeah, but it does force that extra out, right? That's the thing. So now has to find that Town Store, one of those 2 Pokestop, or one of those 2 Lost Vacuum in order to make use of that Forest Seal Stone. So continuing on with Jackson's turn, does find very important there, that Night Stretcher for the rare candy into the Dusknoir, and he's going to use the Curse Blast.
And this is big. Does he draw into the Charizard?
Yes, he does!
He does find the Charizard, and that is a big find now. With the Charizard, it means that pressure can finally be put on. We could see something else, but no, it's just going to be a pass. Jackson unable to put on any other pressure, and the door is wide open here for Fabrizio. If he can find a way to bring this Radiant Greninja back and attack with a Moonlight Shuriken, both of these Pokemon, both the active and the bench, could be knocked out, and we could see Fabrizio steal this game away.
But this is going to be so tricky, right? Because as you rightly mentioned, 2 Super Rod in the prizes, 1 in the Lost Zones. He has to find the 1 Super Rod left in his deck to get this Radiant Greninja back.
And even on this turn, this is where Kramer, again, could really shine in this spot. But Fabrizio not having access to that means he has to really rely heavily on certain pieces like the bigger Mirage Gate attacks in order to, put on attacking pressure this turn. The turn's not over yet, though.
No.
It does have another flower selecting, but this is big. No Colress yet for Fabrizio. Can he find it here off of these 2 flower selecting cards? It's another tough choice. Either Lost Zone, a 3rd energy card, or one of your powerful Mirage Gates.
It's a real tough break for Fabrizio. A big opportunity, as you said, to really close the door in this game, but the flower selecting is just really not being favorable to him in the slightest. Not even, say, finding a Raikou plus an out to the stadium in order to be able to make use of that Forest Seal Stone. Or, I mean, Lost Vacuum's in hand already, but with no out to Raikou, it's not really doing much of anything. So it looks like it's going to be 3rd energy. Oh, it's so tough, right? I guess, yeah, it has to be Mirage Gate. There's 2 energy in the Lost Zone already, especially with 1 Super Rod in the Lost Zone. It just feels so rough.
This hand is just switching cards and Mirage Gates that can't get played. And what a top deck, I believe. Or maybe would have had it here. I have to double check, but does have the rare candy.
No, I think it was a top deck. I think you're right.
I think 3 cards regardless. That is the card you exactly want to see. Charizard EX finally online thanks to that early prize card taken. Thanks to Curse Blast, Jackson can now start to attack into these Comfey. And if Fabrizio can't put anything together, it's going to be too little too late.
And here's the situation we're in now, right? Where at the start we thought, oh my goodness, Jackson has a Charmeleon and a double Charizard prize. And then Fabrizio has a decent start, can really capitalize on this. And now the script is completely flipped. And now Professor's Research for good measure as well, just to draw 7. And wow, what?
Yeah, that is incredible. You had the research in hand before, but of course, if that rare candy was there before, would have just played it down to put Charizard in play. So that was the top deck for turn, 100%.
Wow.
Jackson's going to continue things off, drawing 7 cards. Looks like finding maybe a couple of Buddy Poffin in this hand, so can get down some more basic Pokemon, and will indeed do just that. We do see this as a little bit of a thicker Duskull, or rather more of a standard Duskull line here. Playing 2 of those Duskull, I wonder if Jackson really values getting another one of those down, or if he's content using just that one Curse Blast ability.
Yeah, just looking through the deck again and seeing just like I think every single card is almost as like shiny as it could be. I feel bad for that one jamming tower, right? There's no
secret rare.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. Big fan of the gold stadiums personally, but yeah, Buddy Puffin getting down another Charmander and another Pidgey. There's a good chance if you can't evolve the Pidgey in the active this turn that it will be knocked out, so best to get a second one down. I mean, given that the turn that Fabrizio had last turn, I don't think you're too worried about a Radiant Greninja coming in, Super Rod in the Lost Zone, you know, Greninja in the discard pile. It could happen, but I think, yeah, we're pretty content here to just get this bench set up, retreat into the Charizard, and then, yeah, just Burning Darkness, take another prize.
So Jackson will take the second prize card. Action on Fabrizio has Prime Catcher, but still no Pokemon to attack. And another tough flower selecting 2 energy cards off the top. Chorus, where are you? There's none in the prize cards. There's 4 in this deck. And he has just been unable to find them. Gonna have to make another tough choice. If you Lost Zone this water energy, you can now never use Moonlight Shuriken for the rest of the game, and that will be the choice since there's also only 2 lightning in the deck, so if you Lost Zone the lightning energy, you can never use Iron Hands or any of your lightning attackers. What a terrible flower selecting to see. Totally out of his control, but man, that hurts.
Yeah, and insult to injury, finds the Super Rod now as well, so were it not for that Lost Zone, maybe could have actually pulled something off of Radiant Greninja, but oh, that's just so rough for Fabrizio here. And it's just going to be a pass again.
Another pass, and Jackson's going to go down to 3 prize cards this turn. Fabrizio just unable to find anything to help him out in this spot. And Jackson will get to push this advantage even more. A Narvin being played, Rare Candy being found. This is going to signal almost certainly either another Charizard coming down or Pidgeot EX being online and giving Jackson the ability to search out any card he wants for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Fabrizio here, what do you even do, right? Your deck is just not cooperating with you. Your opponent is basically fully set up and has taken 3 prizes, not only before you've even taken 1 prize, but before you've even been able to do a single point of damage. I mean, yeah, what do you do here? Like, the Charizard is going to be set up now. The Pidgeot's set up. Jackson's going to be able to find any card he wants. Honestly, if I'm Fabrizio here, I'm considering picking up my cards and moving on to game 2.
It is a tough spot indeed.
Yeah.
Not good at all. I mean, you have been given a prize card thanks to that Curse Blast, so Fabrizio does need to just take 5 prizes to win the game, so could do that over the course of 3 turns, but the more I think about it, is there ever a world where Jackson is unable to win the following game in 3 turns? Additionally, I think it could possibly come down to what Fabrizio is able to put together this turn, but it's a lot. It's going to have to be 2 2-prize knockouts and a 1-prize knockout over the course of 3 turns. Going to be a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, it is, especially looking at the deck list, right? I just don't see the damage output for that in the attackers that Fabrizio has. Like we talked about at the start of the game, one of the biggest struggles for the Lost Zone Toolbox deck against Charizard is just the amount of HP that Charizard has. 330 is such a huge number, and if you haven't been able to do any sort of like set up smaller bits of damage early on, you just can't reach for those KOs once your opponent's Pokemon are fully evolved.
And we're seeing a very different style to this Charizard deck. I mean, looking at it a little bit more intently, there's only 2 Arvid in this deck, really capitalizing off the Secret Box.
Okay.
So, look, this has sort of been a clinic throughout the weekend of Secret Box's strength and just finding a wide array of cards and having it allow you to set up clean and consistently. Here we go for the turn. It's a Lost Vacuum draw.
Oh.
There are 7 cards in the Lost Zone, so Mirage Gate is online. But I think the only question here for Fabrizio is it worth playing something like the Super Rod to maybe shuffle back these Comfey, the Radiant Greninja, so you give yourself a little bit more positive outs off of something like Flower Selecting? Or do you save the Super Rod? And I think the big, positive point to having to save Super Rod here is this is going to be your last one available. Right now, assuming you don't take any off the prizes, you are out of Super Rod. Yeah. And this is going to be the choice, though. We're going to see the Super Rod get played down, and that is because Fabrizio wants to power up an attacker. In this case, it will be the Iron Valiant. So like you said, Freya, getting Iron Valiant powered up, it can, of course, use that ability if it moves out, but also attack and deal some damage.
Yeah, so Laser Blade for 2 Psychic and a Colorless just does 200 damage, and then it can't attack next turn. But, I mean, in this situation, you just want to put some damage on, right? So, yeah, this is going to have to be what you make use of. And, we do see the Roxanne in Fabrizio's hand. This might be a way to try and make some kind of comeback here.
Yeah, Roxanne is very solid. However, with Jackson now having Pidgeot EX in play, it's not going to be, as disruptive as it could be if Pidgeot was not in play. I mean, that's the advantage of having Pidgeot. It just gives your deck a padded level of consistency, and though Roxanne is a great disruptive card, when Jackson can just search for any card he'd like after drawing his card for turn, it sort of limits the positive effect. This is more so just acting as a shuffle draw 6 in this case for Fabrizio, because he'll take any supporter he can get in this spot.
Yeah, still hasn't played a single Chorus Experiment, right? There are four in the deck. They're in there somewhere, just not been able to find them. But at least with this Roxanne, he can draw 6 and does find that Radiant Greninja that was shuffled back straight away. Looks like it's, oh, there's a Chorus Experiment at long last off this Flower Selecting.
Chorus now, but it's the only recovery card left in the deck, that one copy of Night Stretcher.
Oh.
So here's the choice here for Fabrizio. I mean, the deck has been thinned out fairly well. So there is a world where, of course, you do want to play Chorus next turn, but do you believe in your deck to be able to, find yourself another next turn with another Flower Selecting, maybe a concealed cards? And that does seem to be the motto here for Fabrizio. We'll put that Greninja down, and I'm sure we'll be seeing an attack come in here from this Iron Valiant, as well as that Tachyon Bits to place 2 damage counters wherever he'd like onto one of his opponent's Pokemon.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking here if I'm Fabrizio. I think the game plan has to be, it's going to go on either 2 ways. You could consider whether you wanted to put the Tachyon Bits on this Pidgeot here, and maybe try and follow up with an Iron Hands KO on something on it, just being able to put it into range after 2 Tachyon Bits or go to 240 and actually amp you very much for a KO, or even, actually we could even less if you can make use of that future move to Energy Capsule, but it looks like in this instance it's just going to be Tachyon Bits on the active instead, and then it's going to be Laser Blade and over to Jackson's turn. I didn't see what even grab a quick search, it was so quick.
See what the choice is. At this point, Jackson is currently, I believe, not dealing enough damage to take the knockout onto Iron Valiant. I have to double check Iron Valiant's weakness. Is it weak to dark? That is something I have to double check here to see if it's going to be enough damage. We're actually just going to see that Professor's Research that was shuffled back in, so it is weak to metal. Sometimes these future Pokemon, their weaknesses change. I have to give myself a bit of a refresher. So with Fabrizio only having taken 1 prize card, it will not be enough damage dealt. We'll see how this turn plays out.
So in this instance, it's because Iron Valiant is a fairy Pokemon in the video games, right?
That's
so
true.
In the TCG, if it's a fairy Pokemon, it becomes a psychic, but weak to metal. So yeah, makes sense there.
So the Research gets played. Seems to be the choice off of the Quick Search. So Jackson now having 7 cards in hand. Oh. And because of the Pal Pad being in the Lost Zone and Roxanne being played, it means that Fabrizio will have no more access to disrupt Jackson's hand, so he'll have a lot of cards to choose from for the rest of the game, and that is honestly probably all he'll need to be able to close things out.
But yeah, the Iron Valiant, very importantly here, surviving on 210 damage, 10 HP left. That Burning Darkness just a little bit short. Might buy Fabrizio a little bit of an opportunity to try and make a comeback here, as we do see the retreat into the Comfey, and on a Flower Selecting finds a switch and a switch cart. It looks like that Night Stretcher is still in hand. Do you maybe try and go for the Ampy Very Much KO onto this Charizard, actually?
It's going to be so tough. There's only 2 Mirage Gate left in the deck. There's no more Super Rod, so a lot of the energies have already been exhausted. I don't even know if there's 4 energy cards available in the deck to be able to use Ampy very much at this point.
Yeah, you might be
right. Might have to be relying on Sableye to start spreading some damage. Now, with there being 10 cards in the Lost Zone, that could be Fabrizio's plan to try and, finish off this Charizard, put a 1 prize Pokemon in play, and you know what? How about we'll just pick things up and go to game 2? It was a little bit too little too late. Fabrizio not having enough to be able to, outpace Jackson, getting ahead of too much of a lead, and Jackson Ford, despite prizing 2 of his Charizard EX, finds the one importantly off that Cursed Blast and takes game 1.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of fortunate in the sense that the Charizard that were in the prizes were at the sort of towards the bottom right. Usually players tend to take prizes from the bottom upwards, and so actually that first prize grab was a Charizard EX, and really from that point Jackson was just able to stabilize and set up and just attack a bunch, whilst Fabrizio just kept announcing Flower Selecting and then finding tough decision after tough decision after tough decision. Just really not much going there for Fabrizio.
Complete narrative switch from what we saw. This is why you can't judge prizes by the game state.
No.
It seemed like Jackson was, grasping at straws to start things off. Getting aggressive with Cursed Blast, not usually, Charizard's MO in these matchups. It's a great ability, but it's not necessarily what you want to start with. Fabrizio, on the other hand, had a very, very slow start. That was a game 1 that had a bunch of surprises, as we'll take a look at our replay and see what went down.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we just discussed, right, we're there at the start, after the Orchid Prizing was able to get that Charizard going, Fabrizio just Flower Selecting after Flower Selecting with every single awkward decision imaginable, having to get rid of like 1 Super Rod after 2 were prized, leaving only 1 in the deck, and then just not being able to find anything to attack with really at all.
And there it is, Jackson Ford taking game one. I'm sure is, giving himself a sigh of relief after that first deck search, thinking, yeah, this one's cooked, it's probably over. Sometimes all you need is to get a little bit lucky after some unluck goes your way. We'll see if Fabrizio's going to be kicking things off. I would not be surprised to see him deciding to go first. Double check, yep, he will be starting things off, so going first in this matchup is definitely a big advantage, especially if you can get yourself to those 7 cards in the Lost Zone by your second turn of the game. We'll see what Fabrizio's got. I'm sure hoping to find, a Colress's experiment this time along to give himself a little bit more oomph. Does use that concealed cards to start things off and does have a nest ball, so we'll see at least some flower selecting action, albeit I'm sure Fabrizio would like to see more than just one on this first turn.
Yeah, and nest ball feeling pretty good about finding that already. Kind of getting a chance to get a good look through the deck. As we take a look at these prize cards, looks like it's not really too bad. There's a couple of switch prize, which is a bit of a shame. That one of Sable Eye is going to have to be fished out at a later point with Hisui and Heavy Ball. That's kind of the only one of that's prized there.
So it will be the Comfey as the selection off of Nest Ball. And Fabrizio's got some choices whether or not he wants to play the switch card here or if he has an energy to retreat. It will just be the switch card and the flower selecting, and does get rid of that Nest Ball, a card I'm sure he would have loved to play down to get some more Comfey, but can't really afford to get rid of that powerful A-Spec in Prime Catcher.
Absolutely not. Actually going to put down that Spiritomb, interestingly enough. Now, we do know that the Charizard list do tend to play a couple of basic V Pokemon as support, both that Lumineon V and that Rotom V, so actually pretty heads up here from Fabrizio benching that. Might stifle Jackson's setup a little bit.
Yeah, you love to use Instant Charge if you're a Charizard player, going first or second on that first turn for you. So being unable to find those 3 cards or use something like Luminous Sign could definitely be a big setback. We do see the secret box in the prizes as well as that Forest Seal Stone. So a few, key consistency setup cards here for Jackson. Of course, that Forest Seal Stone used a lot just to get that Pidgeot out into play. So without having access to, things like Lumineon, Rotom to build the hand and find supporters, as well as those consistency cards, it could be very tough for Jackson to get a stabilized board.
Yeah, I think apart from the Charmander, all the prizes are one-offs. It's the one-off Serendipity EX, the Forest Seal Stone, the Collapse of Temple, and the Secret Box. This is some brutal prizes from Jackson, but at least you have your main attacker available this time.
I think, to be fair, Jackson would prefer these prize cards over Double Charizard EX.
I think you're right, yes.
Still not great, but Jackson will work with what he's got. Going to take note of what cards are available. You see a lot of players doing this, writing those prize cards down to just take mental note, right? And to take physical note of, okay, these cards are unavailable. I won't be shocked when I know, playing a card like Arven to search for my secret box and it's not in the deck.
Yeah, so Ultra Ball coming in after that. Nest Ball finds a Charmander. Going to go ahead and discard a Counter Catcher, and that might be a bit of a tough choice here. Going to be that Boss's Orders. There are 2 copies in the deck, so you can discard one and then feel comfortable enough getting back to the second one with your one of Power Pad that you play, but definitely want to get that second Charmander down. Super important to avoid getting blown out of the water by Radiant Greninja, no pun intended.
And so Jackson will go ahead and shuffle the deck up, but I mean, this is really Spiritomb putting in work, shutting something off like Rotom. This is an instance where I think Jackson would have loved to just put Rotom down in play, say, look, if you've got a Moonlight Shuriken turn 2, be my guest. I will go ahead and probably pick things up to game 3. If not, I'm going to set my board up and be in a very solid spot. We are actually going to just see the Iono, so we'll still be able to look at 6 more cards. We'll put Fabrizio's hand on the bottom of their deck as well. Draw into a fresh hand of 6 and see if there's, any ways to get some more Pokemon into play, set up for some rare candy plays next turn. We'll see what pieces are available for Jackson. And there is that Buddy Poffin, so if he chooses to, could get some more Pokemon down, and that will be exactly what Jackson decides.
I've got to be feeling pretty good about finding that. Can find a second Pidgey for good measure, and then I guess you can find that Duskull as well. Yes, absolutely. So this is a pretty ideal turn 1 from Jackson here going second.
Yeah, with that one Charmander prize, it's definitely a little bit of a scare, since a lot of these times it's just about getting Charizard EX up. Maybe would have just liked to, get the whole squad out, so no matter what happens, there is the threat of a Charizard EX coming into play, thanks to that Moonlight Shuriken being such a great attack at sniping these smaller HP Pokemon. It will just be the pass back over, and now Fabrizio with his new hand, I believe, Colress is finally there, and that is something that Fabrizio is very happy to see early on in the game.
Yeah, not only that, but happy to see that Nest Ball to get back the Raikou that was put to the bottom of the deck, especially considering that he drew that Forest Seal Stone. So with that Nest Ball plus that Forest Seal Stone can attach it onto the Raikou V and make use of that Star Alchemy V-Star power to search for any card from the deck. So actually, Fabrizio's on for a very strong turn here.
A strong turn indeed, again, because there are just those 2 Charmander in play and nothing like Manaphy to protect the bench. If Fabrizio can, use that Moonlight Shuriken and target down both Charmander, there's a world where Jackson is unable to attack, and Fabrizio can push his advantage even more. And you now see how aggressive this deck can be in terms of drawing cards, concealed cards, Colress, Flower Selecting, and even searching those cards out with Forest Seal Stone. Fabrizio's going to see a lot of cards, but the big question is, are we going to see enough cards in the Lost Zone for that Mirage Gate to be able to power up Radiant Greninja or any Pokemon on Fabrizio's side?
Yeah, it's going to be tough, right? I think you're going to need some kind of combination of a couple of Flower Selectings plus a Lost Vacuum to get there, especially given there was only 1 card put into the Lost Zone on turn 1. So 2 more here from this Chorus's Experiment. A Lost Vacuum plus 2 more Flower Selecting will get you there, as we do see, interesting choice there. Flower Selecting, obviously get rid of a Comfey. Oh, but had another one ready to go in hand already, so it makes sense to Lost Zone that. Is there a switching card so you can do 1 more Flower Selecting? Oh, there's 2 Comfey in hand.
There is a switching card, but I don't know if Fabrizio has any of those Mirage Gate yet. Of course, that is the powerful card that allows you to, with 7 cards in the Lost Zone, choose 2 basic energy of 2 different types and accelerate them onto your Pokemon. Is another tough choice here for Fabrizio. I think Colress is the better card of the 2. You would like to, find those tool cards out, but with the Forest Seal Stone already in hand, it seems like it's an okay spot to get rid of Town Store, but I don't know if Fabrizio can afford to use this Forest Seal Stone since he's missing a few pieces needed. You could use the Forest Seal Stone to find Lost Vacuum, but there's really no way for Fabrizio to capitalize on having 7 cards in the Lost Zone with his current hand.
Yeah, so it's going to have to be 1 more Comfey benched. I think he has enough other switching cards to try and go for it here. Oh wait, no, is that the last switch card in his hand actually? It might be. There's Flower Select number 3, it's a Water Energy and a Boss's Orders. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to do it this turn,
That's tough, going to get rid of the Water Energy. That's something you're of course going to need for Radiant Greninja later on. There is also 1 in the discard pile, so Fabrizio will need to, play something like a Super Rod if he'd like to be able to attack with Moonlight Shuriken. But sort of a pretty big miss here for Fabrizio if he chooses to just go with this strategy of passing the turn over and holding on to that Forest Seal Stone for later. And now if Jackson has powerful pieces to evolve, things like Charmander and Pidgey, all of a sudden the board is developed and this entire narrative flips.
Yeah, so big opportunity missed there for Fabrizio, not able to find the pieces to put together the Moonlight Shuriken to take the double knockout on the Charmander. So instead, back to Jackson as he finds a Pal Pad, shuffles a couple of supporters back into the deck. And this to me telegraphs there's probably going to be a Professor's Research coming or some other draw supporter just to try and find this combination of the rare candies plus the stage 2s that Jackson needs.
Jackson has been given a lifeline in this situation. There is most games, I mean not most games, but a huge amount of games, Greninja just gets there, and it has the knockout. At least when I'm playing against Lost Fox, that's what happens. So here we go. Jackson's going to play another Iono, shuffle the hand to the bottom, draw 6 cards. Usually you see Arvin, things like Secret Box, or even research a little bit more card draw to find these combinations of rare candy. That Secret Box, of course, is unavailable. There is an Ultra Ball in the hand, but the big question here is, do we see rare candy? And with this Charmeleon being found, I don't know if Jackson has other powerful trainer cards to be able to get these Pokemon into play. And while, yes, you're slowly building up the Charizard, that Charmeleon does have exactly 90 HP, so it would still be in range of being knocked out to a Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah, a lot of people get mixed up on this Charmeleon's ability, right? It does have a sort of built-in protection on the bench, but it's from effect of attacks, not from damage. So you can't use a Stabilized Lost Mine, for example, to damage it, but a Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken is A-okay. So it's going to be, looks like with this miss from Jackson, again, Fabrizio's going to have 1 more turn to try and piece together this Moonlight Shuriken to really just close the door on the Jackson's game.
So action now on Fabrizio here. Did have 6 new cards, so notably, that Colress's Experiment in the hand did go to the bottom of the deck, as we will now see the concealed cards, drawing 2 additional cards, and finally, one of those 2 Pokestopper in the hand. This is essentially the key engine in terms of stadiums for here, and that is a tough Flower Selecting to Mirage Gate. You can only pick 1, so 1 has to go.
But to be fair, at least you found one, right?
You did at least find one, that is true. We'll now see the Pokestop get used, and it gets rid of 2 supporters. Does find the Pal Pad, so that can shuffle more back in. However, there's no other energy card in the hand at this point. We did see the flower selecting
Yeah,
be
yeah.
used, so there has been one flower selecting used. The one Mirage Gate is in the hand. However, Fabrizio would like to find a water energy to attach
Yes.
and then play the Mirage Gate, but with there being one in the discard pile, it means there's only one remaining in the deck. Fabrizio is really going to be relying off of something like this flower selecting with the switch card to find himself pieces. But now that there have been 2 Colress discarded, Fabrizio has another tough choice on what supporters to shuffle back in.
Yeah, and I think the going in for the 2 Colress is completely correct, right? If you are able to put this together, you are so far ahead, and you really do not mind giving up the Roxanne later on. So I think it's absolutely correct to go for the double Colress experiment here. Give yourself the maximum odds just to hit it. And also, as well, importantly, playing the Power Pad does shuffle the deck to make sure that even the cards that were put to the bottom of INO are viable targets to find too.
This is going to be a big flower selecting. This could completely decide what happens this game.
There's a Chorus!
And finds the Chorus. That is a big time find for Fabrizio. This turn is not over quite yet. Does have to now make this decision. Do you play the Super Rod first at this point to increase the odds of finding water energy off of Chorus, or do you just go for it now? Here we go, 5 cards. What does he find? And those are really not the best cards at this point. Both of your lightning energy, you can probably get rid of one, that's okay, but you want to keep the boss. You need the switching cards to continue digging this turn. And you also need to have one of the lightning energies, so one of these cards, one of these valuable resources is going to have to go.
Yeah, so it's going to have to be the Chorus's experiment and the lightning energy. I think they're literally, we couldn't have made a better choice even with that awkwardness. Double Super Rod in hand. Now, if you can find yourself, there are 2 Mirage Gate in hand, so if you can go ahead and find a second, wait, no, sorry, not 2 Mirage Gate, wait, it is 2 Mirage Gate, isn't it? Yeah, so if you can find, wait, hold on. No, is it one? No, I'm getting mixed up. So it's a Mirage Gate and a Super Rod, right?
That's
so
correct.
yeah. The 2 Super Rods, that's what I meant to say. So if you can find a second Mirage Gate, then you could Mirage Gate twice and go for the Moonlight Shuriken. But no, just a miss again for Fabrizio as he passes.
And just passes his turnover, and Jackson has been bailed out yet again and does have Charizard EX, it seems, in the hand, so can finally get his powerful attacker on board, power up his Pokemon by attaching 2 fire energy to this Charizard and then 1 onto the active to allow it to retreat, and Fabrizio again has struggled in the early game and has been unable to put attacking pressure on, and that is what Lost Box needs to do in this matchup before all these Pokemon evolve, have a ton of HP, and make it so that you're really going to be struggling to take those prize cards.
That's so rough for Fabrizio, especially considering, you know, in this game, was able to actually find a Chorus experiment, dug quite deep into the deck, but still not able to put together the Moonlight Shuriken, and now that opportunity is like closed off. Sure, you can still use one, but you're not preventing that Charizard from getting into the game. So yeah, that's super rough for Fabrizio.
And another Iono being played. So Fabrizio, with those resources like the Super Rod and the Mirage Gate, go to the bottom of the deck. Yet again, Jackson gets to fill the hand back up to 6 cards and does find Rare Candy Pidgeot off of those 6 cards here from the Iono. That is an excellent find. Now, there is always risks to putting Pidgeot in play, but surely you always want to get that evolved.
I think there's no reason not to, right? I mean, yeah, sure, maybe Raikou can take a KO on it, but I think you like searching for 1 card any turn. We do also see the Dusclops coming in, and are we going to see a Curse Black? Wait, interesting. Okay, just attacks with the Pidgey.
This is very interesting. I mean, this could definitely be a nod to, you know, Fabrizio being down a large amount of resources. Jackson can kind of note here that Fabrizio has been pretty aggressive in terms of how he's used flower selecting, what cards he's lost zone. So maybe just deciding, you know what, I'm not going to put a lot of these liable 2-prize Pokemon in play. I'm going to take some time, and I want you to take the first prize card so that I can take the 2 prizes on the Raikou. Maybe that's what he's thinking in this spot.
Yeah, I think so as well, because, right, I mean, you could maybe put it together with the Dusclops if you had a counter catcher or something like that, but not quite able to put it together there. So instead, yeah, just gonna play it patient and just announce, just Gust. Gust works, that's fine. And then gonna go ahead after that and pass it over to Fabrizio after attacking, who just goes ahead and goes for another Chorus experiment. Gets to get rid of a Manaphy and a Pokestop, it looks like. And as we do find the Forest Seal Stone there, so Fabrizio will have the ability to search for any 1 card from the deck, but unless he's able to, does he have the counter for the Jamming Tower in hand?
He decided to lost on that Pokestop,
Oh,
so
right, cool,
value
yeah.
the other 2 cards, and another tough flower selecting. That has been the narrative for Fabrizio all game. It's either get rid of your almost last Chorus that you have available, or one of those powerful recovery cards in Super Rod. We will see Super Rod hit the lost zone, so that card is no longer an option, but does have another one in hand, and finally see these energies be put back. 2 Psychic and a Water shuffled back into the deck, and there is a Mirage Gate to complement that. So will we finally be seeing Radiant Greninja get into the fray? And we will, as the Psychic and Water get attached to Greninja.
Yeah, so it looks like, and now at least, we'll finally see a Moonlight Shuriken going. And although you can't take out the Charizard anymore, you can take out both the Pidgey if you want to. Just really cut off that quick search option for Jackson. And although the problem with that, of course, is that your disruption option is gone. So there's no more Power Pad, there's no more Roxanne. So though getting rid of both the Pidgey is good, it's still, you can't really combine that with a put into a low hand size to really, really put the hurt on Jackson.
So we'll see the Hisuian Heavy Ball get played. This can finally fetch Sableye out of the prize cards, and that will be exactly what Fabrizio decides to do. Of course, an extremely efficient attacker later on in the game, allowing you to, now that there are 10 cards in the Lost Zone, or more than 10 cards for that matter, be able to put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon however you'd like. And with that now being an option, the big question for me is, Fabrizio, if he does decide to go for this Moonlight Shuriken, which it looks like he will, does he target down both the Pidgeys? Does he maybe get rid of the other Charmander and the Dusclops? As that could allow him to maybe use Lost Mine later on. There are a few options here. I don't think it's necessarily a gimme in this situation.
No, I don't think it is either. So it's especially considering how, like we were just discussing, right, the disruption aspect isn't as good given that your own disruption cards are gone. So getting rid of both Pidgeys, it can help you, but it's not quite as powerful. So yeah, it looks like it is just going to be Prime Catcher to bring up this Charmander. Forest Steel Stone going onto the Raikou just for later on when you can counter the Stadium, and then it's going to be the Moonlight Shuriken, and it's going to be it is going to be on both the Pidgeys after all.
Yeah, and playing that Prime Catcher may have been the only switching card available, but it does at least force Jackson to have a Fire Energy or another Rare Candy Charizard in order to, get this Charmander out of the active spot. However, looks like does have the Night Stretcher in hand, allowing him to, if he chooses to, either get back that Fire Energy to retreat or recover one of those 2 Pidgey into the hand. So Jackson does have outs. The rest of the hand is very interesting. There is, of course, the Night Stretcher that we noticed, but also Counter Catcher is online now. So this could be a situation where Jackson maybe ignores the Radiant Greninja. Of course, having to discard those 2 energies via the Moonlight Shuriken means that it will have to take another Mirage Gate if Greninja wants to fire off another Shuriken.
Yeah, it will. So it is going to be the Night Stretcher for the Pidgey after all, really valuing just getting that set up because, yeah, you just want to be using Quick Search every single turn if you can. So I'm sure that's going to be a very quick target for Fabrizio if you can pull off another Moonlight Shuriken, assuming that there's a way to recover it after it inevitably gets KO'd. But looks like Jackson's going to look through the discard pile, just try and suss out what the best strategy is here. They're going forward. It's going to be that Counter Catcher and actually just going to go ahead and fetch that Raikou V from the bench.
Does bring the Raikou up, but I think he's just going to pass his turn over. So just bringing Raikou into the active spot. And this is a really interesting situation. Potentially what Jackson could be thinking is, look, my opponent doesn't have a lot of great attacking threats on board. Their board is filled with 4 Pokemon that are support, right? The Spiritomb and the 3 Comfey, the Radiant Greninja that, has to discard energies every time it attacks, and this Raikou that is sort of limited in what it can do. Maybe I can force out more resources from my opponent before I commit to, starting to go for an attack, and that probably has to be the way that Jackson is thinking about this matchup as Fabrizio continues to dig through Lost Zone cards and try to put together a game plan.
Yeah, and it's a rough course experiment here. Going to have to get rid of that Future Booster Energy Capsule and the Iron Hands EX, so there will be no Ampy very much extra prize shenanigans going on this game at least. Did opt to keep that Lost Vacuum though, which does mean that now you can get rid of that Jamming Tower, and that Forest Steel Stone will once again be live to use to search for any card from the deck.
It does have Super Odd and Mirage Gate, so we will see what believes to be the last Mirage Gate, I believe, getting played.
I think you're right.
So there are no more Mirage Gate available. We'll go ahead and put those energies onto Radiant Greninja. So now at this point, there is one more, excuse me. So there is one more Mirage Gate. So we're down to just one. We'll see the retreat here into the Greninja. Maybe, of course, there is sort of a little bit of a clash going on. You can't use Fleet-Footed because of the Spiritomb in play, so it does shut off a little bit of your passive draw and play, as we will see another Moonlight Shuriken targeting down the Dusclops and the Pidgey. Fabrizio going down to 2 prize card lefts, and with Jackson taking this super passive route, I have to wonder, Freya, what is his endgame here? What is his plan in this matchup when he's had multiple opportunities to take prize cards early and has chosen passively not to do that?
I think his plan here is to try and force Fabrizio to go down to one prize card and then just INO and be done, basically. INO sweep with this one big Charizard, because like right at the start of the game, we mentioned it once, we mentioned it again, Charizard has such a large amount of HP. There are not really any attackers that can very easily deal with Charizard in Fabrizio's deck, so you can get just like a lone Charizard going right at the end combined with an INO. I think that's Jackson's game plan here.
It's just going to be so tough with no support engine, with all those Iono already being played.
Wait, have all of them played already?
Well, we saw them early on in the game.
No, but there's 3 in the deck.
So there's one more left, but you can't search it out because Luminion is shut off thanks to that Feathered in Misfortune ability on the Spiritomb. So Jackson's just going to have to naturally have the last Iono, and even then, if Fabrizio finds a way to, you know, get Colress out, maybe chain a couple of Flower Select things together, and Jackson is unable to put together a Pal Pad and build up a board, then eventually Fabrizio's just going to get there.
Yeah, I guess so. It is a tough position for sure, but actually, yeah, just going to be a pass. I think he really wants to force this last Charmander to be KO'd so that if he's able to find the last Ino, it will be down to a 1-card hand instead of a 2-card hand. And also maybe acknowledging the fact that Fabrizio has been through a lot of resources already. We can see a lot in the discard pile, a lot in the Lost Zone. Just really just trying to out-resource, kind of playing a little bit of a control element maybe.
We're going to see the energy onto the Spiritomb.
Oh my goodness.
Fabrizio acknowledging, yes, Spiritomb is great, but I've got to open this bench spot up, using Fade Out to remove Spiritomb out of play and give himself an opportunity to bench a different Pokemon instead for that 5th and final bench spot.
Yeah, an important interaction to note actually with the Spiritomb, because as you mentioned rightly, it does shut off the Fleet-Footed, but because the ability of the Forest Seal Stone is on the card itself, it would still let it wouldn't prevent Raikou from using the Star Alchemy. Just an important interaction there to note. In case anyone was confused. Oh wait, is that Thornton into a... What? It's Thornton into a Pidgeot!
We have Thornton into Pidgeot. That is exactly correct. Pidgeot EX now coming into play, so maybe Jackson realizing, okay, my opponent found a way to get themselves out of being bench locked in this situation, so Pidgeot finally online, and this could be a situation where it's hand disruption time. Using the quick search, of course, 10 damage is still on that Pidgey.
Yep, Fade Out.
There is that final Iono in the deck. I've got to imagine that's what Jackson needs to do here to keep himself in this game. Hand disrupt and hopefully find one of those Pal Pad to put those cards back in.
Yeah. And yeah, just Jackson explaining how the interaction works. Yes, with the Thornton, you swap out the Pokemon, it's still treated as a Pokemon that's been out for a turn. So even though the Charmander just became a Pidgey, it can still be Red Candy evolved into a Pidgeot. It's one of the things that makes Thornton such a great and useful card.
Yeah, that is an interesting interaction with Jamming Tower, but Jamming Tower says that the Pokemon tool cards have no effect, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't believe you'd be able to use Forest Seal Stone. We saw that yesterday on stream.
Yeah,
Remember on stream we saw that yesterday?
No, but I wasn't drawing. I was just yes, we already mentioned that already. But,
okay.
I was just talking about in the interaction with Spiritomb specifically.
Sure.
Yeah, because absolutely, the Jam Tower would make it. But we know that Fabrizio has a Lost Vacuum in hand ready to go, so we'll be able to get rid of the use the Lost Vacuum to get rid of the Jamming Tower when he wants to use the Forest Seal Stone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Jackson finally taking a knockout. We'll go ahead and take the first prize card of his 6
yes.
as Comfey comes up and Fabrizio starts his turn. So just 2 prize cards away. And now with that Pidgeot EX being on the bench, notably, if Fabrizio fills his bench up completely with the weakness, Raikou V's Lightning Rondo attack would do just enough damage, 140 times 2, so 280 to take a knockout onto this Pidgeot, excuse me, who will actually just see the Sableye finally come down and the Lost Vacuum, like you mentioned, Freya, getting rid of Spiritomb, removing the Jamming Tower from play. But I don't know if Boss's Orders is a potential option. If it was, all Fabrizio would need is the Switch Mirage Gate and potentially, I guess, a way to bring energy cards back too. I don't know if Fabrizio has Boss left, though. That's the big question.
We did see it earlier, but I can't remember if it got... because there's only one in the deck, right? But I'm fairly sure he didn't actually use it in the end. But we can look through the discard now.
Because if Boss is in the deck, then as long as Fabrizio built his bench up, he would be able to take the knockout. So maybe a little bit of a misstep there, attaching prematurely to the Sableye. Could have used that energy card to
retreat,
could sealed cards, could retreat. So that could give Fabrizio a couple less outs, but I think the game is already here. Doesn't even need it. Forest Seal Stone can search the Boss's Orders out, has got the final bench Pokemon in the hand, and a switch to finish things out. Fabrizio takes down game number 2, and we are going to a game 3 in round 9.
And that was a bit of a risky opening that Jackson opened up, right? I think maybe that's also why he was reluctant to go for pitch up for so long, knowing that the Raikou V was down, could at any one point, you know, just take a 2-prize knockout on it, and that's why initially opting to maybe opt for that single prize Charmander, but then just really needing that quick search, so doing the play with the Fulton, but then that gave the opening for Fabrizio to take the final care of the Raikou V. Wow.
What a game. I really just have to think about what Jackson's endgame was in that situation. Just deciding to not take prize cards could have been a correct strategy if that Spiritomb was unable to, you know, use that fade out and move out of play. And maybe something Jackson has to think about going to this game of, yeah, maybe if that was, you know, another Comfey in play, a Manaphy, something else, it could have been a different game. But wow, two very different strategies going into this matchup. The super passive route up against the attempted aggression that Fabrizio had. And when he finally got rolling, he was off to the races.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally able to find that Moonlight Shuriken, which was kind of evaded him for so long. Did take out both of the Pidgey there and was able to go for it again. Just taking out then the Dusclops and the attempted, like, you know, setup again Pidgey. Just, yeah, double Moonlight Shuriken in a row. Not really much you can do about that, as much as Jackson absolutely tried his best. In the end, was able to do really cool Fulton play to try and, you know, get the Pidgey out and then evolve into the Pidgeot, but then that gave the opening for the Raikou V to come in with the Forest Seal Stone, using the Star Alchemy to find the boss's orders, and Fabrizio finding all the pieces to take the win.
So we're going into game 3. There's not a lot of time left on the clock. I believe just over 5 minutes remaining. So we'll get into game 3. You know, these things could always end quickly. Fabrizio's not playing a card like Cramorant. That's usually, you know, the victim of the what we call turn 2 win, turn 1 win going second. So we'll see the prize cards come out. Of course, both players are going to want to have access to as many cards as possible, and we'll get into things here. Game number 3, Fabrizio, it looks like will be going first, so Jackson opting to go second in this situation. Do you like that choice from him here?
Well, it's quite common for Charizard, right? It's a bit counterintuitive because you think, oh, a stage 2 deck always wants to go first to get its evolutions out right, but you really want to be able to play a supporter at turn 1 because then your setup is so much stronger. So that's probably why Jackson opted to go second here, and also bearing in mind, like we just talked about with the timer, right? If you go second, you can attack on your first turn, so maybe you can steal the win that way too.
So the Iron Valiant being the active Pokemon to start the game off. You never love to put these 2-prize Pokemon down super early if you don't need to, especially against a deck like Charizard EX. Does have Greninja though to draw some cards, and the switch for flower selecting. More cards go into the Lost Zone as Fabrizio gets set up and immediately having to get rid of the Super Rod in favor of keeping the Colress.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? You do play for Super Rod, but you play for Chorus as well, but Chorus is the one you want to see earlier, so it makes total sense to keep that. Nestball coming in as well, finds a second Comfey. Now, did you get a chance to look at the prizes, Ethan? Because I didn't quite get a chance to look at them earlier.
Nope, I'm sure we'll see the prizes very soon. As of now, though, Fabrizio, going to put a little bit of pep in his step, understands he's going to have to play fast if he wants to win this game. We'll go ahead and just get rid of a switch cart off of that flower selecting and passing things over. So Fabrizio definitely understands that if this game is a short one, it's going to be favored for him if there is an ability to win. However, Jackson can still claw things out depending on how these next turns go. So it's still anybody's game, even though we've got just over 3 minutes remaining.
Yeah, it looks like Jackson's prizes pricing the one-off Rotom V and the secret box again. Oh, that's really, really not great.
Yeah, and those Iono can be very important in this matchup to, you know, hand disrupt your opponent, put them to a lower hand size, and with 2 of them being in the prizes, sure, they're at the bottom, so they will probably be taken, you know, in an earlier fashion. However, it's still something that you want to, you know, put disruptive pressure on your opponent while you're also throwing up this big, beefy 330 HP Pokemon and taking prize cards.
Yeah, which is actually what you want to be doing against this Lost Zone Toolbox deck that really struggles with these higher HP amounts. So second Charmander coming down, looking through the rest of the deck, and yeah, finding that once again a lot of awkward one-offs and resources are prized, but not much you can do about that. There is another Nestball and a Pidgey ready to go, so we'll be able to get a pretty decent board setup here. But like you also mentioned, Ethan, I'm looking at that clock and I'm not seeing the win for either player here with the current double setup.
Yeah, notably, Nestball here for Rotom would again be great. However, it's prized this time instead of Spiritomb being in play. So Jackson, again, may be a little bit slow in terms of building up a strong hand to, you know, get these combo turns, Rare Candy Charizard, maybe Rare Candy Pidgeot pending the time. But I have to wonder here how these players are going to, you know, play this game out since we are at such low time in this clock. As it stands right now, Jackson's going to continue his turn prematurely, you know, putting Pheasantipity EX into play just so that that Flip the Script ability could be online to draw him some additional cards next turn. And we'll see if he does have a supporter card he'd like to play as well.
I wonder if Jackson knows and or has realized that Fabrizio doesn't play Cramorant yet, actually.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? It has not been shown yet. A lot of the times you'll see a card like that get lost zoned if it's not needed, or just coming down to put pressure on, but that's not going to be the case at all. And another risky situation here for Jackson.
Oh,
Once
boy.
again, only puts 2 Charmander into play, and hold on, Fabrizio starting off with a super powerful Chorus's Experiment as a supporter, so this will push him up to 4 cards in the Lost Zone. After these flower selectings, there will be 6, and then if there's a Lost Vacuum or 1 more flower selecting, that could be the magic number 7 Fabrizio needs. In combination with some gates and some right energy cards, that could be no more Charmander next turn.
Well, the water energy is already in hand, actually. So,
Okay.
and we just saw the Mirage Gate find off of the Chorus Experiment. So, actually, this could be really. I think Fabrizio's basically almost there. Does have a flower selecting here to have something to choose between. It looks like a Future Booster Energy Capsule and something else. I didn't
It's
quite.
a Chorus's Experiment,
It-
and it's going to
another
be
one.
really tough to validate putting Chorus in the Lost Zone. So now there's only 1 Chorus's Experiment left in the deck. 2 of those Chorus put into the Lost Zone. And the big question here now, is there another Comfey or is there a Lost Vacuum? We're going to go ahead and see. Oh, does he already have the Lost Vacuum in hand? He does.
Oh, he does.
He has the perfect combination of cards
Right, so
to be able to use the Moonlight Shuriken.
That's why he wanted to keep the Future Booster Energy Capsule, just so you had something to lost zone with the Lost Vacuum to get to 7.
And this will be a huge tempo swing. Finally, Fabrizio getting this turn to Moonlight Shuriken, albeit a lot of resources were lost, but it's worth it if you're taking both Charmander out of play and forcing your opponent to have to use their next turn to set up instead of attack.
Yeah, and it seems at the very least you do have the Pal Pad as well, so you can go ahead and put that 1 Chorus Experiment back, so you have 2 left at least, and then it's going to be the attachment, and then the switch. Moonlight Shuriken takes the KO on both the Charmanders, and wow, what a turn! What a turn from Fabrizio there!
Going down to 1 card in hand, but knocking out both of these attacking Pokemon before they are set up and ready. Pheasantipity comes up to the active spot. Sure, you can flip the script and draw some cards, but unless there's a crazy Thornton Rare Candy play, something like that, Jackson's not going to be able to attack this turn.
No, he's not. And you have to wonder if this game went on longer. I mean, time has been called now, but if the game had gone on longer, whether, Fabrizio would have been able to, steal this one pretty quickly. But it looks like the timer is just about not worked out for him, unfortunately.
Well, let's not count out Fabrizio yet. Don't forget about Iron Hands EX. That can always allow him to take multiple prize knockouts. The Iron Valiant could knock out the Pheasantipity, so things are nowhere over yet, Freya.
Oh, no, but it seems like the way the time was called, it was actually on Fabrizio's turn, so Jackson actually turned 1.
That's true. Yep, so with Jackson being turn 1 here, definitely not going to be taking 6 prize cards, and I don't think Fabrizio has got any way to take 4 prize cards on his own turn. We're not playing Anti-Valiant down here. We don't have multiple Tachyon bits to be used.
No, we don't.
So we'll see how this game plays out, but as it stands, Jackson really in this game, if this went on longer, like you said, Freya, would have been in a pretty tough spot, pending Fabrizio had at least some sort of attacking aggression in these following turns to take those last 4 prizes.
Yeah, but meanwhile, instead, that Buddy Poffin coming in. Just Jackson having a look at the hand. Now, we did see yesterday, Alberto Conte being a very good sport, even though the game ended in a tie, did a good concede, considering he saw that even though if the game could have gone on, it would have been a loss.
Sure.
But I don't know if there's any kind of thing like that here. So it's, right now, the way this game's going, it will be a tie, but we shouldn't absolutely confirm it until we know for sure.
So finally, Luminous Sign makes an appearance. Spiritomb no longer in play this game. So we'll see Iono come down. We'll go ahead and disrupt Fabrizio's hand. We'll get 4 cards after shuffling those to the bottom of the deck. Jackson, same thing, but 6 cards instead, since he's at 6 prizes. We'll see exactly what Jackson is able to set up in terms of this turn. Is actually going to play the counter catcher on the Iron Valiant, so that will make it a little bit more annoying potentially to move out of the way. It will also possibly prevent something like Tachyon Bits from being more of a likely scenario. So Jackson potentially just playing cautious and conservative to try and make it so that, there's no weird win conditions that come down for Fabrizio in this situation.
Oh, Collapse Stadium coming down as well, just to prevent the 5th bench slot from being used on the Fabrizio side. So then it's just going to be, just a pass, though, not even getting a Charmander in play, although I guess maybe given the current turn of the game, it probably doesn't matter too much.
No Charmander down as Fabrizio will be turn 2, so both players will have 1 more turn to play. Yep, can't play that Nest Ball.
Yep.
Does have the Town Store, though, so
there
can go ahead and search through the deck now, find a piece of a Pokemon. It will just be, it looks like, considering the Raikou V. Okay, so the Raikou V could come down, and we have not seen Forest Seal Stone be used yet, so Fabrizio can, of course, search that out thanks to Town Store, allowing you to find any tool card you'd like, but it looks like it's already in the hand, so that is an option for Fabrizio here.
Yeah, so we'll be able to attach that. No jamming tower in play this time, so can go ahead and use that Star Alchemy on the Forest Sealstone to search for, yeah, going to be that Chorus experiment. Just dig further into the deck, find more resources. You can, of course, so this Luminion V, even though it has 170 HP, it is weak to Lightning, so this Raikou V can take a very, very easy KO on it, actually.
As long as Fabrizio can find these Mirage Gate, he'll be in an excellent spot to, you know, find a way to take a knockout. Even the Iron Valiant could attack and knock out this Fezandipity. So there are a few options to think about, or it's only 200 damage, so you'd have to find, you know, a switching card to come in and out again.
Yeah, so you make use of that Tachyon Bits ability, because then you could put 2 on the active, and then it would be enough.
So thinking about which cards could hit the Lost Zone at this point, does have to select one more card, or it seems to be able to, you know, put the other 3 into the hand. It will be another Super Rod lost, so that is now only 1 Super Rod left since we saw the one get played last turn. And it looks like we're not going to see this game conclude because there's no more time left. What a great fought battle. So